Don't tell me there's no marginal gains. Don't tell me everything's management's fault. And don't tell me you're going to do improvements in the next sprint, because you're not going to do them anyway. So let's be honest. Let's make peace that the only improvement you're going to make is right now, this hour, and every cycle I'll do. In Kanplexity is called a cycle, it's not called a sprint.
Today, my guest is John Anthony Coleman. John helps executives capture opportunities and solve organizational problems through timely, humane effectiveness and, of course, adaptiveness. He is a 2024 MEA Top Voice Thinkers 360 and a LinkedIn Top Voice. John is a flight levels coach, professional Kanban trainer with prokanban.org, less friendly trainer, agile kata trainer, and obviously a professional scrum trainer with scrum.org. He is the creator of Kanplexity, Xagility, and the More Executive Success. John is also the co-author of Kanban Guide with many more achievements. I am so thrilled that I'm hosting him today. This videocast is an episode of a series named Your Story, hosted by PST Mehdi Hoseini with the mission of sharing the professional life story of professional Scrum trainers and other advancing people with serious achievements in the product development world. So if you enjoy the videocast, don't forget to subscribe and share it with your friends and colleagues. Hey John, good afternoon, welcome.
Hi Mehdi, lovely to see you today. How are you doing?
Yeah, thank you very much. And I appreciate that you accepted my invitation. And today we want to have a conversation about your story, professional life story, and help people to know you better. So the floor is yours. John, would you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure thing, Mehdi. Thank you so much, and thank you for having me on the show. So my name is John Anthony Coleman. I specify the Anthony because there's a lot of John Colemans out there. You do some Googling and you'll find about 3 million of them. So, and there's a better John Coleman out there in the agile world as well. So maybe it's better to say John Anthony Coleman, because I get tagged a few times a week. You know, they're tagging the wrong person on LinkedIn.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's funny. But I'm an executive guide and I'm also a product manager. And I really love helping executives to capture opportunities and solve organizational problems. And I do that through timely, humane effectiveness, ambidexterity, and adaptiveness. So ambidexterity is where you're trying to balance the short term and the long term. And I work with people at all levels. So I love helping teams, individuals, managers, everyone in between. And I do a lot of scaling as well, but I prefer to descale. We might talk more about that later in the interview. So that's just me in a nutshell.
Oh, cool. Thank you very much. And let's dive into the professional life of yours. We know that you're a PST with Scrum.org, and at least we have this thing in common between you and me. So it was the main reason that I invited you here, but I know that you have a lot of things on your plate. We want to talk about the history of your process that you became a PST. Would you please elaborate on it, how it started, and what was the main reason that you decided to be a PST?
Yeah, I guess we have to kind of go way back to around 2004. I initially dismissed ideas like extreme programming around 2001. My mind wasn't open to the idea of pairing and all these kind of wonderful ideas in extreme programming. But around 2004, my mind opened up a bit because I was having some challenges as a project manager back then and as a senior IT manager. The challenge I was having was I was working in lean organizations where they were coming up with these continuous improvement ideas all the time, which is fine. But there were, I guess they were kind of coming up with too many improvements, if you know what I mean. They didn't appreciate that in a process, you can have normal variation of your process, and every little thing that goes wrong doesn't mean that there's actually something really wrong. It might be just normal variation in your process. And they were kind of like whack-a-mole, every time there was something, we had to do root cause analysis in every single little thing, even though maybe that thing will never happen again. You know what I mean? It was just a normal variation thing. So I was kind of suffering from that a little bit, and the big long queue of improvements I'd have to make in the factory and so on. And small changes were taking 9 months, small changes.
Nine.
Because we had a kind
Yeah.
of a traditional approach, and there was queues everywhere, and frustration as well, because by the time I got the work tested, the requirements had changed, people changed their mind, all the usual stuff. And I remember towards the end of my project management days, I had a Gantt chart, one of these Microsoft
Yeah.
project
Yeah.
files
Yeah.
with like
MS
300,
Project.
yeah, it was like 300 lines in it or something.
Yeah.
No, and I remember I spent the whole weekend and the start of the week, getting this thing ready. And then something happened on the Monday, and the whole thing was invalid. It was like,
Yeah.
what am I doing? I mean, this project file is managing me. I'm not managing anything. It's just ridiculous. So I really started getting into the whole idea of Scrum. I started reading a lot about Scrum, got very curious about it. And for the next 3 years, I was just continuing to read and study and so on. And around the end of 2006, I was presented with a real problem, because I was senior IT manager in a factory where they needed to increase the capacity of the factory by 40% in 4 months, and there was no floor space. And a small change in the factory was taking 9 months. And we had to change the whole factory in 4 months. So I thought, I'm going to get fired no matter what I do. So how about I go out in style? So I said, I went over to London, got trained by Ken Schwaber. There were Roman Pitcher was there as well. He was one of the co-trainers. There was another chap as well whose name isn't coming to me. And there were 15 tables of 10 people. I still have the names and signatures of the people who were at my table.
Oh. Mhm.
And yeah, we were trained by Ken, went back to the factory, rounded up a bunch of people, and created my first Scrum team.
Oh. Awesome.
And
2006. Yeah.
end of 2006, early 2000, yeah, basically yeah, 2006 thereabouts, yeah. I think I left there early 2007.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, it was really interesting. We actually delivered the whole thing. I've got loads of stories from that piece of work. And not only that, but then some genius decided to put in a new ERP system 2 days after going live, changing the whole factory. So then I had to use Scrum to recover that ERP implementation. And then I had to plan, what if they go live? What if they don't go live? What if we don't go, all these rollback plans? Because this is a factory with millions of signals, it was attached to Dell, the computer company. So like we could have stopped Dell, So like, you don't stop Dell. So it was really, really interesting. I loved it. And once that work was done, of course, once the emergency is over, people want to go back to the old way of working, and I kind of I kind of sense the magic of agility from that piece of work, and the people collaborating, working together, business people, IT people, like all working together in the team. It was a proper Scrum team. It wasn't just IT folks in a team. There were business people in the team, manufacturing engineers in the team. It was a proper, real team. And it was really, really cool. Very stressful, but I enjoyed it so much. I started taking on kind of consulting roles, doing recoveries, usually rescues. And I'd go in and I'd use Scrum to rescue the situation, because what you do when you're in trouble, you meet every day. So I'd use Scrum for rescues, and did really well for 8 years with rescues. And then I ended up in a really massive company, Fortune 100 company, and a guy in there, he was my sponsor. He had a team that was very good at doing traditional. So when I actually got them to do Scrum, they got worse for 2 months, which caused a panic. Like change management 101 is actually when you put a change in, things might actually get worse, before they get better. And so I started researching people in change. I think I know more about people in change than I do about agility. I really went deeply into that for about 18 months. They were very kind. That company let me do loads of research, basically reinvented, and became a full-time coach in around 2012. And I stopped rescues at that point, but actually I I almost did. I had a few rescues after that, but I have to be honest, I preferred the rescue moments because they were, and the budgets got bigger and bigger, like up to like $500 million. Like it didn't matter what they threw at me, I'd turn it around because everybody wanted, they were in trouble, so they wanted me to help fix it. But what I've noticed is in situations where they're not really in trouble, it's difficult to make change. So I almost prefer to do rescues. I'm thinking of going back to rescues again because it's easier. There's an appetite for change and people want to do it and they'll do it and so on. So anyway, as part of my coaching, I was training people,
Uh-huh.
but I wasn't really kind of doing what a full-time professional trainer would be doing, training people for 15 hours and stuff like that. I was doing, an hour here, 2 hours there, workshop there, workshop there. It's a different story, it's a different pace and different qualities there need to be a
Yeah.
really professional trainer. So it was very late joining the Scrum community. I actually wanted to become a Scrum Alliance trainer. I went to America
Oh.
because only one Scrum Alliance trainer would let me shadow him in the UK. Very grateful to Mark Summers. He's a great guy. Still in contact with Marta today. And so I went to America. They didn't care over there because I wasn't competition. And I shadowed them. This is back in the days when we were all training in person,
Mhm.
And I got, I met some great trainers over there, but I was put off by a few things. I was put off by the inconsistency of the training,
Mm.
and it actually alarmed me. And there's some people who trained me over there who are my friends till today, and we still help each other and so on. But I saw some stuff I wasn't comfortable with, so I was actually near. I was like CST standard, ready to go into the attack and all that. I had a guy mentoring me in the whole lot, and I jumped ship. I said, no, I'm going to the bottom of scrum.org. I'm going to start within 6 months, got all the badges that they had at the time and applied to become a trainer and then went into the process of becoming a PST.
When was this one? Which year?
2017.
2017.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So
Mm.
I jumped ship around late 2015, early 2016. And yeah, I have no regrets about that actually, because the Scrum.org, they've got a really nice community of trainers. We all have our moments, of course.
Mm.
No community is perfect, but by and large, there's good support, and we don't have that many kind of egotistical arguments and things like that you might see in some other communities. So really did appreciate that side of Scrum.org, and Scrum.org makes its trainers meet each other at least once a year.
Yeah.
So we have to behave, So like we can, you do your snarky comments in Slack and email. We're going to meet each other. Maybe not this year, might be next year. And how are you going to feel when that happens? So kind of helps you to kind of behave. I think that's a really nice idea what they do, and they've got lots of other measures as well to encourage trainers to meet each other. So that got me started on training badges. So I got involved then with prokanban.org, and my
Mm.
original drive actually to become a Scrum trainer was not because I wanted to be a trainer. I wanted to become a less trainer and coach,
Uh-huh.
and so the minimum qualification is you need a CST from Scrum Alliance or PST. Although there are some trainers who didn't have either of those because they're just so talented and they got through. But generally, for the normal kind of person coming through, that so I said I might as well go for PST, and then I became a less friendly Scrum trainer as well. And then I got into flight levels, so flight levels coach
Mm.
now. I became an agile kata trainer, and I'm exploring other options now as well in terms. But so I do training, consulting. I do a lot of writing as well. Prolific writer. Got a couple of podcasts as well that are, they're in a few countries, top 100 every day. One
Mm.
for practitioners called Agility Ireland, and the other one's called Xagility, which is for product management and executive people.
Yeah, these are the things that I have already written on my question list to ask you.
Yeah,
We can talk about them
yeah,
later.
yeah,
But let's stay in the PST
yeah, yeah,
context.
yeah.
At the moment, which courses are you focusing most? I mean, from Scrum.org.
Yeah, the most popular classes I sell would be PSPO, which is Professional Scrum Product Owner, Professional Scrum Master,
PSM.
Professional Scrum Master Advanced. Scale Professional Scrum. I get a lot of people coming to that. That's the Nexus class at Scrum.org.
Oh.
I used to love teaching the Scrum at UX class, but I had a lot of Americans coming. But this year something's happening in America and the orders aren't coming through. So very few of those classes happening at the moment. I love the Product Owner Advanced class as well. The leadership class for managers, and there's also a leadership class for evidence-based management. So I focus mostly on the core classes. Occasionally I might do applying professional Scrum for the basics of Scrum, or I'm not so much into the skills classes. I'm not so much into the facilitation class or product backlog management skills, but I'm very much into the core classes, if you like, you know, but I think the ones I enjoy teaching the most are the advanced ones.
Yeah, PSMA, PSVOA.
Yeah, and Nexus as well. You need
perfect.
to have your wits about you with teaching Scrum at UX as well, Scrum at Kanban. You need to be, you need to be on your game, you know. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind. I mean, but I'm kind of it's funny. One of my co-trainers said to me last week. He said he likes to get his students to listen to my podcast, and he said that they probably only understand my podcast after they have gone to his class. So I don't kind of do the very basic stuff, you know. I'm assuming some knowledge, because even the PSM class at Scrum.org, it's really like an intermediate class. It's not like a basic class. It's like,
I agree.
You know, and same with even with the product owner class, they're not basic classes, and so a lot of people get a bit of a shock when they come in, you know, or it's okay, I get them sorted, it's fine, but bit of shock therapy when people join.
Shock therapy.
Thinking it's going to be, you know.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's not a spoon feeding of Scrum kind of thing. It's kind of, you're expected to put a bit of effort in as well, you know. But I really enjoy teaching. I adapt every class to the crowd. I don't say, a corpus 10 I need to be here, and 11 o'clock I need to be there. I'm not like that at all. I just respond to the energy of the class and go where they want to go. And I just use skills to make sure I just figure out, you know, how do I achieve the learning objectives by the end of the class, you know, because we have strict learning objectives that we need to comply with at Scrum.org, so we're consistent. So if someone goes to you, Mehdi, or they come to me, they get a similar experience, basically. It's not, and we won't get any contradictory information either.
Yeah.
So that's nice.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, my next question, John. You mentioned that you are the trainer with Pro Kanban as well. Yeah, and we know that Pro Kanban was founded recently, I think a few years recently.
Yeah,
why did you choose to be their trainer as well?
I got involved with Kanban Guide with Daniel Vicanti, and felt natural because the Pro Kanban community they'd be the community that would be most in sync with Kanban Guide. I would say Kanban Guide was originally written so that would be more open to all Kanban flow communities. I remember reaching out to my job was to reach out to the different communities, or at least understand different communities' perspectives on flow, like Tame Flow, for example, from Steve Tendon, the flow system from Nigel Thurlow, Kanban method from Kanban University, and various other communities, and just understanding what they felt was important and trying to bring Kanban right back to the bare minimum. Okay, this is because people kind of got a bit carried away and they started adding things, and people didn't know what Kanban was anymore. It was like, do I have to do, if I don't do these things, does that mean I'm not doing Kanban anymore? So what was happening was people were doing extra things, but they weren't doing the basic things. So myself and Daniel, we wrote a guide so that people will understand, look, these are the minimum things you need to do. This is the minimum you need to do, and then here's some extra things you can do as well. But the bare minimum is described in Kanban Guide, and so ProKanban.org would be the best aligned community to that, I would say. And it's really nice because it means that essentially we're achieving Kanban and flow diversity. So even though ProKanban have their own view of the Kanban world, Kanban Guide allows you to kind of go off, if you decide to go to Tame Flow, you go to Kanban method, or wherever you want to go, you can go there, but we have a core that we're saying, look, this is, if you want to explain in simple terms what Kanban is, Kanban Guide explains what it is. And we're very strict as well about the translations. So we make sure now that when the translations happen, that they're side by side. So like in the German translation, you have the, English on one side and German on the other. We
Oh.
have a chap who's lined up for the Farsi translation. We've got a Russian translation coming through at the moment for Kanban Guide. And we're very strict about it. We're saying how many people they get to review and all these kind of things. Because I think the worst thing you can have happen is someone does a lazy translation and then people don't look at the translation. I think, for example, the Scrum Guide translations are not great. I find them embarrassing. And so, like, actually, I tell people you're better off reading the English one because there's so many things wrong with most of the translations that I've seen. I
Yeah.
don't want to say all of them, but the ones that I've seen. For example, the Russian one is not, it wouldn't be up to standard. I've people who speak Russian that I know. I asked them to read back to me what Scrum Guide says, and it's the wrong stuff, that they're reading
Yeah,
back to.
you're right. I had the same experience because, for example, in my native language, I mean
Yeah,
Persian, even we
yeah,
don't have keywords for
yeah,
some keywords in the Scrum Guide, so
yeah,
it wouldn't be that effective. Yeah, I
yeah,
agree, I agree.
yeah,
And you mentioned it is a bare minimum. So we have the same thing like a Scrum Guide, yeah, for
yeah. Yeah,
Kanban Guide.
pretty much. It's even more bare than Scrum, I would say. It's like really pared right back. There's no events, there's no roles, there's not
Uh,
even a team. You just need Kanban system members. So we really pared it back.
oh.
Yeah. And
How many pages is it? Because the Scrum Guide is 13 or 14 pages. I
you know
haven't
what?
seen it, to
Off
be
the top
honest.
of my head, I can't remember, but it's shorter than that. It's
Oh,
shorter than
shorter
yeah,
than that.
yeah. Because it depends
And
on which, yeah.
you know that we have a framework with the Scrum.org, yeah, Professional Scrum with Kanban, something like this.
That's
We
right.
have
Yeah.
that.
Kanban
Yeah,
guide for teams, yeah.
yeah. What is the difference between this one and Kanban
Yeah.
Guide?
They were very similar. They were very similar. Daniel was involved in the original Kanban guide for Scrum teams,
Uh-huh.
and it was very similar then. And there's been a bit of a fork. I did some analysis. I'm writing a book, and the book series is coming out this year. And I had to analyze attitudes to flow measurement again in 2024 to assess, what's going on. And I had a look, and I noticed that on the Kanban guide for Scrum teams, there's a strong preference for controlling WIP, controlling work in progress, which is
Working.
generally speaking a good thing to do. Kanban guide would also say that you need to control WIP, but it doesn't say how you do it. So you
Uh-huh.
don't have to use WIP limits, for example. You could be clever with workout imaging, for example. A Kanban guide allows more wiggle room in terms of how you control WIP in your system. Whereas Kanban guide for Scrum teams is very explicit. If you don't have a WIP limits, you don't have a Kanban board. So that's kind of interesting. Also, we merged controlling WIP into active management of work in progress because of the way that we're saying, well, there's different ways to control WIP.
Mm-hmm.
They're the kind of the key ones. So it's very interesting that they are kind of diverging a bit. You'd like that they would merge more, but I think we're kind of going apart.
Mm.
The way things are going. But that's okay. That's just life, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
they're very similar. I would say they're 95%
Oh,
similar. So yeah.
oh. Cool. And which courses do you have with ProKanban?
So I teach applying professional Kanban, and I teach with Alex Priestley as well, and he teaches a number of other classes, the advanced metrics class, and also with Christian Neverdal as well. He
Uh-huh.
also does the advanced metrics class as well. So essentially two classes because I pair with those gentlemen. They've got the licenses for that class, and but I just do the bare minimum with the one. But I am very curious about their product classes that have just come out. So as soon as I get a chance, I'll try to get licenses for teaching those as well because product management is something I'm really into, and
Mm-hmm.
I think people in product management do need some help, and there's a lot of resistance to frameworks and methods and so on. And Kanban, in its most basic terms, I think can be very, very useful for people in product management and any kind of management, being honest. So.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks for clarification here. Let's continue with the next question. Would you elaborate a little bit about less friendly Scrum trainer? You are
Yeah.
the trainer with them as well.
Yeah, it's an awkward tightrope walk for me as a less friendly Scrum trainer because the less community officially does not support the 2020 Scrum Guide.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I think I'm one of the few. I actually don't know anyone vocal in the less community who supports it. I think I'm the only vocal one. But there could be some who are maybe I'm not aware, because maybe I haven't seen their messages or something. But generally speaking, the less community supports the 2017 Scrum Guide, although they didn't really admit to that strongly enough until the 2020 guide came out. I found that very interesting. That when the 2017 guide was there, they didn't strongly come out, but it was only when the 2020 came out they said, "Well, actually, we're supporting the 2017 guide." And I can speak for the less community. I'm a less friendly Scrum trainer, yes, and I teach the Certified Less Basics class, which is a one-day class on large-scale Scrum. Nice little introduction to less, but it is just the basics. And essentially, the removal of development team, I think, caused problems because unless there is no Scrum team,
Oh.
you have a Scrum
What do
Master.
they call it?
You don't, well, team, they have teams.
Yeah,
So
just team.
what we used to have as development team, another name for that was team. And then you had the Scrum Master who might be floating around maybe between a couple of teams or maybe three teams, maybe even one team, and then you one product owner across the entire product. I actually like the 2020 guide because like one of the things that they came out very strongly saying is that when there's many teams working the one product, they share the same product owner, product backlog, and product goal. And I think that's very welcome. But there were some other things as well, like product goal was added. There's not so much focus on goals in less. Even the sprint goal is de-emphasized. See it as useful, but not necessarily mandatory, like unlike Scrum Guide. So there are some differences there.
Yeah.
So I really like large scale Scrum. I like the descaling aspect of it. I like the way they kind of say more or less the first rule of scaling is not to scale. Get the best people together and trust them to get the job done. But if you have to scale, less is one way of doing it. But actually, another way of looking at less is it's more about descaling. It's about simplifying, decluttering, refactoring your organizational processes, workflows, and systems so that you strip away all the bureaucratic BS, being honest, the stuff that's actually slowing all the teams down. And they have a role for manager, which I really like. So I'm optional. You don't have to, if you don't have managers, you don't
It's not
have to hire them.
mandatory, but yeah.
Yeah. But if you have managers, they're very useful. They often have more power and influence to remove impediments than Scrum Masters, which begs the question, could there be Scrum Masters? And yes, of course, there could be. But of course, that creates other problems. But I have seen really good agile managers, quite honestly, being Scrum Masters. They were very effective. They were the kind of people that were so cool that if they turned up, the team wouldn't be acting differently because they were cool managers. They were really nice, very fair, very humane. So unless the manager will go see, they'll go to really see what's going on. They'll see not just visiting the team in their team room or on Teams or wherever they work, actually mobbing with the team, seeing their code if they're software developers, seeing what the developers are putting up with. And developer in Scrum means anybody doing the work, by the way, for the people who are listening. I know you know this yourself, but just seeing what the people are putting up with and doing the go see so often that the truth will emerge. So like you can just do a royal tour. I remember I was in a big bank in the UK. It was hilarious. They got, the women were putting on their makeup and dressing up and wearing the fancy outfits, and the men had to wear their suits. They were asking me to put up posters. It was just hilarious. They're like, the execs would turn up, once a year, like, well done, John, well done, whoever you are. But actually, that's not good enough. You need to visit so often that you see the real truth. You see when they're not wearing all their fancy clothes. You see when things are not great, things like that. So yeah, so that's a real thing they encourage. So and there's a thing in less I really like as well. Loads of things I love less. That's why I'm one of their trainers as well, one of the less basics trainers. They have a thing after the retrospective in Scrum called the overall retrospective. And managers go to that if they're there. So you kind of turn the tables upside down because, as Klaus Leopold said, he's a Fight Levels guy from Austria. He says agility is not a team sport, it's a company sport, because most of the problems are beyond the control and influence of the teams. So when you start with teams, yeah, we're making progress, but then they hit a ceiling, and the ceiling is all the BS that the teams have to put up with. So when you turn the tables, the teams say, look, we to fix this, we fix that, but these things are beyond our control. Can you help us fix these? So it's like a shopping list of problems to fix. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's really nice. I love that about less. So a manager essentially is there to fix problems beyond the control and influence of the teams, or really give the teams power to resolve those. And less is often misunderstood. That
Mhm.
they don't help themselves. I've tried to convince people, can they get rid of this expression feature team? But they won't do it. Um, and to be fair, their explanation feature team is genuine. It's good. They don't mean a feature factory like some people are saying quite
Uh-huh.
publicly. That's not what less is about. They're teams that solve problems or capture opportunities. Each item in the backlog is not just a user story. It's a problem we need to solve. It's almost like a goal in itself. And you work with the business people, and the business people are in the team, UX people, everyone needed to understand the problem, and they do discovery, they do delivery, and they actually check that they hit the bullseye. They do this. They're just not doing themselves any favors with the PRs the way they name things, because you're very prone to being called a feature factory when you say that you've got feature teams. But they're
Yeah.
really problem solving teams. They're
Mhm.
uh, really full end to end. I like to call them slice of cake teams, like a
Ah.
cake.
They
You have
have
layers of
all the
cake, slice
expertise
of
in
cake.
the team to
Yeah.
resolve. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm
So let
wondering why we have the keyword friendly with less.
yeah.
Less friendly. Why?
Yeah. What they actually mean by it is that there are a lot of scrum trainers, not exactly saying great stuff. Now,
Ah.
trainers are not in that bag. They're Scrum trainers. They're awesome. They're like you went in, I came in after you. Our customers would not be confused.
Mm.
We're saying pretty much the same thing. However, there's about five less friendly Scrum trainers within Scrum.org. I think it's about five. And what we do, we have a particular bent. And so when we're teaching Scrum, we have stronger messages on some things. So a more emphasis on some things.
Uh-huh.
Like we might be saying, for example, we don't like when business analysts are product owners, because there's nothing wrong with being a business analyst, by the way. I know
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
wonderful analysts. Three of the best business analysts I know were the best product owners I know. But by and large, 99 out of 100, they don't have product management skills,
Uh-huh.
and they don't have a mandate. They don't really own the product. They're taking orders. They're clarifying things with customers. And they think, God love them, that by clarifying, what the customer thinks they want, that they're giving the customer what they want, but the customer doesn't know what they want. So the art of and product management is actually really discovering what, by observing customers and looking at analytics, and that's something that less trainers are very strong on. Like, what problems are we solving here? Much more senior people than people would give credit to a product owner. So we emphasize, if Scrum.org would say, well, you can have a scribe, like a bad waiter in a restaurant who
Yeah.
takes an order, or you could be a proxy, a very good person, but you have no mandate or no influence. You could have a business representative or organization representative. Okay, if you're in this kind of world where the Scrum teams are in IT, then if you're a business representative, at least you're actually on the business side of the house. Although I hope there's no segregation like that. I hope we're all one organization. But sometimes IT gets kicked around like a slave to the business, and there's some bad attitude sometimes. Better to have technology than IT, because technology is an asset, whereas IT is seen as a cost center. And then you have sponsor, where they actually have the bag of money. Very few product owners actually have the bag of money. They don't have the budget, so they don't have the mandate to say what we can do and when we can release. And then you have more kind of entrepreneurial type product owner, if you like. And less would have a bias towards entrepreneurial and sponsor type product owners, and wouldn't be so um, this is, I guess this is me kind of speaking now rather than less community, but with my interpretation would be that less would be much more senior product owners that have product management skills, that understand the domain, and actually in less, if the product owner did one job, it's managing expectations with stakeholders, including
Mm,
customers and users.
mm,
So every minute that they're spending writing a product backlog item is a minute they're not spending with stakeholders, managing expectations, visiting customers, doing product management, doing discovery. Do you know what I mean? So whereas a lot of
yeah,
companies, oh
yeah,
yeah, you're writing items all day. And they don't realize that in the Scrum guide. It already says this. It actually says in the guide, and you know this very well, but a
yeah.
lot of our
You can
students
delegate it. Yeah.
they get surprised. They say, "Oh, they're the product owner is accountable for product backlog management, which includes refinement and ordering the backlog and clarifying the goal and communicating the goal and all that." But that can actually be delegated and should be delegated
Mm, mm,
because if you think about it, that's there's too much work in the product owner. If you how are you supposed to be a product owner, product manager, master politician? You know what I mean? And writing items as well. Really? Yeah, how about you get the teams? How about you facilitate conversations between the customers, users, and the people who are going to deliver that stuff, and get them to have a common understanding of what problem they're trying to solve. Can you give me some examples? How are you managing at the moment? What have you tried already? You know, rather than one person thinking they know what the customer wants, they give what they think the customer wants, and then the customer says, "I don't want that." You know, so Scrum is very good
mm.
at helping you to find out what the customers really want from what maybe when they see what they don't want. But anyway, so less would have stronger emphasis on some things, and I like their emphasis. I think it's
Mm,
right. Um, so yes, in Scrum Alliance and Scrum Org, you would have some trainers who don't have a problem with product owners being business analysts, but I would have a problem with that, and I get bothered when business analysts come to my product owner training because I'm thinking that's the wrong class. They're in the wrong class,
mm.
unless they have mandate and influence, you know. So anyway, that's my little
Yep.
rant.
Mm. Cool. Thank you, John. One thing that got my attention from your background is training from the back of the room.
Yeah,
Recently, I hear it a lot. Would you please elaborate a little bit on it as well?
yeah, I absolutely love it. I was a slow. I migrated to it slowly. Like I was slow to move on to liberating structures as well, and then I discovered its magic, and now I love it.
Uh-huh.
Uh, with training from the back of the room, they've got six brain science principles. They used to call them six trumps, but for obvious reasons, I think they're not emphasizing six trumps anymore. um, but things like more movement, talking over listening, writing things down, getting people to kind of metaphorically open the drawer in their brain where they think they know something, let them show you what it is in there, and then try to put something else in there and close the drawer back again. So they got the four C's as well. So connecting with the audience, what do they think about this topic? So when people come to me in a Scrum class, for example, one of the first things I ask them is, "What is Scrum?" And they look at me like, "What the hell are you talking about? I'm here. You're supposed to tell me what Scrum is." And
Yeah.
I explain to them what I'm doing is, and I'm not being an idiot. I'm genuinely trying to get them to open the drawer in their brain where they think they know what Scrum is, and pull it out and just have a look at it. And it's okay if it's wrong. It's not a problem, And if it's wrong, we'll fix it. And if it's okay, we'll close the drawer again. It's fine, you know. So
Good
connecting with what
metaphor.
they think it is, and then you might do a 10-minute mini lecture thing, or you have some way of introducing a topic in a fun way. You might use graphic organizers, you get people moving, there's lots of energy. And then you give them a practice, you give them something to practice so they can apply it. And then within 1 hour usually, they would have some conclusion. What am I going to do differently when I go back to the office? How am I going to apply this?
Mhm.
And it's really, really nice because what it does is it helps you to connect with the topic, not get lectured by, killed by PowerPoint slides. You get to just a tiny little piece of knowledge, and then it's like facilitated learning, if you like. Let them apply it on their own and see it in practice, and then conclude how this might make a difference and how this might be relevant. And really good trainers, they design the classes using the four C's and the six trumps. I'm designing two classes at the moment exactly like that. Last weekend, I, with two different trainers, designed two new classes using that approach. And it's a very nice way of keeping people really engaged. The feedback I get.
Do we have the same thing with Scrum.org content as well? The
Yeah,
design
same content, but there's a bit more effort involved from the trainer point of view, but there's also a bit more effort from the learner point of view. And
learner.
this is why I was initially slow to go onto it, because what I noticed was when I send out pre-reads to my students, 99% of them don't read the pre-read. They don't even watch a video. You get the odd person who reads everything and they look at all the links and they're super eager and they come in and they're gung-ho. Most people turn up. I had a PSM class last week. On day 2, I said, have you read the Scrum Guide yet? And 2 people said they hadn't read the Scrum Guide yet. I said, you want to be Scrum Masters or what? Like, you're supposed to be agents of change. You won't even read the Scrum Guide. You're supposed to be a master of Scrum? Like, what? I mean, not really master of Scrum. We're kind of stuck with the name now. You know what I mean? But like, really, what are you doing?
Oh, man.
So this is the thing. So from a student point of view, if you arrive into the class, you're expected to have done some learning before you come in.
Yeah, preparation or
yeah. So what I do to work around that problem is I make peace that they're not going to do any pre-read, and I just make the time slightly longer, and I do the same design, but I don't assume they've done their homework. If they've done their homework, I take as a bonus. You can say that's cheating, but I'm slowly now moving to, moving it back onto the student and, do a bit of learning. Now, look this up, give me some feedback. Tell me what you thought when you read that, and interacting with students before they come into the class so they can really get a lot more out of the class when they come in, because it's the depth of the learning goes way, way up when they've done some preparation. So I'm a very slow learner to this, but I finally in 2024 started asking people to do stuff and expecting them to do stuff before they join me in the class so they have a much deeper learning experience. Yeah, I really like it. It's really, really nice. So do you use it yourself as well, Mehdi?
No, it was my question as well. And I have heard that there is a certification for that. Yeah, training
there is,
from
yeah.
the.
Yeah, I highly recommend that actually, because I read the book and there was lots of articles and so on, and but the penny doesn't actually drop until you're being trained on it, and they use training from the back of the room to teach you as well. I didn't become one of their trainers. I just, as a normal trainer, I just went in to learn how to train from the back, not to train people on training from the back of the room, like JP Bailey in Actinia, for example. He's one of the top training for the back of the room trainers, isn't he, in the world? But no, I just just learning as how to help people have a better experience with their training, and so I'm gone fully committed into it now. So all my new classes are fully designed from the ground up with training for the back of the room in mind.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so let's move forward about 2 specific keywords that I have seen on your profile.
Yeah.
Kanplexity with K and N. It's a combination with complexity and Kanban, I guess, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So, it's funny, when I wrote Kanplexity, I wrote it in 2019. I was in BP, the oil company, and I was a bit naughty. And they were rolling out Scrum everywhere. I was a Scrum trainer, then I was a PST, but I could see that this particular team that I was working with, they weren't going to use Scrum. It wasn't going to suit them because their work was taking 4 months. In Scrum, you need to do something in 30 days. You need to have something that you can release in 30 days. And this was 4 months, even more than 4 months, And there were a few other little things as well. And I knew I wasn't going to be there forever. So I decided to write a guide so that whoever coached them afterwards would know what I was coaching them on. And so it was a bit detailed from that point of view. So that's why I updated it in 2022. There'll be a 2024 version as well, which will pare back even more. But actually, looking back now, my original intention was, well, you might be doing complex work and you might want to do Kanban. And of course, the pro Kanban people would say you don't need something like Kanplexity to deal with complexity. You can use Kanban. And I agree with that. Skilled practitioners can use Kanban in the complex space, particularly if they understand complexity a lot. But not everybody is blessed with that skill. So I wrote a guide so that you'd understand that depending on what type of complexity you're dealing with, you need to have different events, for example. So, for example, if the work is just complicated, you don't need to do what Scrum might call a sprint review. You don't need to do that in the complicated space because the experts get together, they know what they're doing. Yeah, feedback is needed, but it's not as important as in the complex space.
Yeah.
In the clear space, you don't need to have a daily meeting. What are you doing talking about brushing your teeth and sending 3 emails? You don't need to talk about that stuff. You just need to talk about what you need to work together on today. The complexity is stronger in its definition of the review and the retrospective than Scrum. Because one of the things I learned, particularly in the retrospective, is that teams commit to improving things and then they don't do anything. So when I teach Scrum, I admit that I'm bending the rules. I say to them, look, in Scrum, for example, there's a retrospective, sprint retrospective, 3 hours long for a 1-month sprint, usually shorter for a shorter sprint. But I'd say you need to read the Scrum Guide like you're a lawyer. It's still, if you have a 1-week sprint, the maximum is still 3 hours for a 1-week sprint for the retrospective, but it's usually shorter. Let's say you had a 2-week sprint. So let's say it's an hour and a half for the retrospective. And, people will use the normal Esther Darby techniques, the best practice. It is best practice now, isn't it, that people know to do retrospectives. And they can use all sorts of fancy techniques. And I used to be that guy years ago when I was younger and had different color hair. And come along with my titanium suitcase, clip, 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 and, my Post-its and my markers, and everybody have a great time and we're going to get better and all that. But nobody was getting better. And I got fed up with it. So complexity hardens this. So what I say is, let's say you have an hour and a half, and let's say you figure out what the improvements are within half an hour. I say, okay, you got 1 hour left. I want you to fix one thing right now. And I said, I'll take things away to management. If there's things beyond your control, I'll work at that. Don't tell me there's no marginal gains. Don't tell me everything's management's fault. And don't tell me you're going to do improvements in the next sprint because you're not going to do them anyway. So let's be honest. Let's make peace that the only improvement you're going to make is right now, this hour, and every cycle I'll do. In complexity is called a cycle. It's not called a sprint. The cycle can be longer than a month as well. So it's more flexible than Scrum. It's actually designed for non-software because most software teams should really be doing something within a month. You should be shot really if you're not doing something within a month. Really should be more often than 2 weeks, but there's a lot of places where they should be shot because they're doing it once a quarter. But for non-software, I have seen realistic situations where you can't do something within a month. There's factories, there's supply chain, there's all sorts of things going on. It's not, it's not easy. So it was written for people in non-software, but it could actually be used for software. And actually looking back at it now, it actually decodes Kanban, Dave Snowden's complexity framework, sense-making framework. Decodes it. It explains it in layperson's terms. I reviewed it with him at the time. And it does its best to not use words that might be beyond many people's vocabulary so that you can understand. So, for example, in Kanban, it says, you need adaptive practice in the complex space, which essentially means you need to twist solutions to old problems in the which for a new problem, see does it work, and say, I wonder if this works for this problem. Like mRNA was a I wonder moment. So someone in Moderna said, I wonder if mRNA for HIV would work on coronavirus 19, COVID-19. That was an I wonder if moment. And that's what we need in the complex space. So I don't say exact, I say twist old ideas, for example, and use simple metaphors, weather metaphors, and explain which interactions you might have. You might call them events in Scrum, which interactions are needed in which space. And it kind of explains as well why Scrum has its events, because in complexity, in the complex space, it's pretty much got the same interactions as the Scrum events. It just has more guidance in terms of how you could be more effective with those events. So you'd have a review, for example, and you'd have a retrospective, just like you would in Scrum. But it's really goes away from team as well. You can have a team or a crew, and there's no Scrum Master, no product owner. Because I have this view that it's better to have no Scrum Master than a bad one, and it's better to have no product owner than a bad one. So for that reason, I prefer you can have a guide. It could be a manager. It could be a product manager. Could be a product leader. Could be a Scrum Master. Could be
a coach.
Could be a coach. Yeah. So it kind of gives flexibility, but basically you just need one person who can read the compass of Kanban and understand, how we need to respond to the situation. Gives an orientation reference as well, so you kind of know how to recognize the different types of complexity, different ontological states, and so on, and what do you react when you see a particular thing? What do you do, and how do you behave? Even gives recommendations on maybe what you could be measuring as well, and also has some guides on how you could scale if you want to have many teams working together. How would that work as well? So I'm looking forward to updating that. Probably late 2024, I'll come back to Kanplexity. I might simplify it more. But actually,
maybe one question here, sorry, John, to cut you off.
yeah.
How can our audience find or have access to this framework?
Yeah, you can just go to kanbanguides.org, kanbanguides.org, you know, the way the Scrum Guides.org, kanbanguides.org, and just look at one of the menus, you'll see it hanging off the menu there, Kanplexity.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. It's valuable work, to be honest, because I always have these questions that many people ask. They are not in a software environment and they want to have specific things for non-software context. So that would be valuable. Cool.
Yeah, and people are using it. They write to me, they're telling me they're using it, they love it.
Oh.
So yeah, but I probably will start offering training later this year on it, but people are managing without training at the moment, which is nice to hear.
Okay. Awesome. And the next one, Xagility, hopefully I pronounce it correctly. This one, if you elaborate on it as well.
So I've got a book coming out called More Executive Success. It's a series, actually. And my core work on that was executive behaviors. So how do you behave? What are behaviors that are coherent with agility and product management? What are behaviors that are incoherent with them, and what problems they might cause, and what habits you need to create, and all that kind of stuff. But when I wrote the behaviors for Xagility, I realized that actually the foundation in terms of what an executive needs to understand was not explained. So Xagility is now wrapped inside More Executive Success. So More Executive Success is basically a collection of knowledge, if you like, that explains what executives need to know if they really want their organization to respond to market needs. Because there's loads of offerings for teams, for coaches, for managers. There's very little for executives and board members. They don't know what to do, actually. And so what they do is they go to the latest person, famous person who's writing the famous book and who's on the big podcast, and they try that out for a while. And that doesn't work either. And they're going from one fad to the next. And what I did was I analyzed over 80 engagement models, analyzed them all in detail, interviewed a lot of their owners as well. And I discovered 5 opportunities for executives. And those opportunities include cultivating the environment where agility can grow. I'd be using beyond budgeting, for example, or the 8 trends from corporate rebels, for example, or the leadership principles from the Agile Business Consortium. And then understanding responsiveness. So that flow would be in there, flow of work through the organization. Also organization design as well for responsiveness. Emergence, dealing with emergence, dealing with complexity is in there. So essentially you've got culture gardening, you've got responsiveness, emergence, engagement of people, which means engagement of your people, employees, but also your customers and users and vendors. And the last one, the killer one, is knowledge. That's where most people are slipping up. So I also looked at the big companies, the big successful companies as well, see how they were doing, including Amazon, Stripe, Google, Tesla, all these. And I noticed a pattern which explains why nothing lasts forever. But what a lot of companies are missing is succession planning. So even when they have fantastic executives, brilliant executives, when those executives move on and they get replaced, the Muppet Show takes over, if you know what I mean. The people who aren't as smart in terms of agility and product management and all that kind of stuff, and everything goes backwards. And it's like pendulum one way to the other, restructure this way, restructure that way. And they're just meddling with the organization, and the organization is not making any progress. So So that's a big opportunity. That's the biggest one I noticed, which includes behaviors. I also refer to David Marquet's work, for example. He's done some fantastic work in that space. But I also have done my own work. Xagility is my own effort at what behaviors would be coherent with agility, and how you can assess your own progress in terms of helping your organization to be more successful. Because it's not about asking teams to go faster. It's about you rolling up your sleeves and helping the organization to be more responsive to market needs. And there are the opportunities, 5 opportunities that I discovered. 7 years of work, nearly 8 years of work, and the last 3 years have been intensive. Loads of research, but that work is coming out later this year. A whole book series on it.
Oh, cool. And why did you add that X at the beginning of it? Is there any specific?
Executive. Yeah. So it's proper executive, like CEO or CXO, like really, and not because a lot of people call themselves executives and they're not. So I even define what an executive is as well. But it's people at the very, very top who actually ask questions and trying to get them to ask different questions. It's not for executives who want to buy something in a box. And there's a lot of them. Most executives just want to buy something in a box and wrap it up in a bow and sign a check. And the problem is sorted. Someone else is doing, bring in some consultants, get them. It's not for those people. It's for the people who've tried that and they know it doesn't work. And they know that the only road is the hard road, the long road. And it's a journey that they need to go on.
They should be consistent.
Yeah. So it won't be for everybody, but that's okay.
This is for all people who are committed to, walking the way. Yeah, cool. I can imagine.
Exactly.
Yeah. And one more thing, flight levels coach. What is it?
All flight levels is really cool. I didn't appreciate it enough when I was reading about it. Essentially, it's hard to describe it, and that's kind of one of the problems with flight levels, and even the flight levels community itself could do a better job of describing what flight levels is. But essentially, work flies at different levels. And imagine you have an airport, and you want a plane to land, but the airport is full. In other words, imagine you have a strategy item as an executive, and you want to start a new item, but there's no point in starting it because the airport's full. There's no parking spots for any. You can't even land a plane. It's like they'll just be queuing at the end of the runway. There's nowhere for the planes to go. It's a metaphor for stop starting too much work in the organization, and control the work in progress at a higher level. It's interesting because it's inspired by Kanban, but it's not Kanban, because I won't say they're silent to metrics. They're not. They do have a view on metrics, but it's much more about outcomes over outputs. So, for example, one of the tips that Flight Levels encourages in their Flight Levels 2 design class, for example, Flight Level 1 is team works, they do Scrum or Chaos or Waterfall or Kanban or whatever they're doing, right? Flight Levels doesn't care what type of work you're doing at the team level. But we're probably all working on what you might call a value stream, but flight levels have a different approach. They call them flight routes. The work flies, and because work might not start from above, it might come in from the bottom. There's probably stuff that happens operationally all the time, and not all work actually comes from the top. It comes from. So flight routes are not as simple as value streams. They're value streams. It's lovely. That's what the customer gets, and these are all the steps, and this is what happens, and this is how it moves. But life isn't as simple as that. Flight routes are a lot more messy. And I like that approach. And so you have a flight level 2 board where you've got a long board, if you like. We can see all the boards joined up together, essentially, and you can see where the queues are building up. So the company I was in a few years ago, I was in one department, and Jose Casal is a lovely expression that I love using. One department was doing a denial of service attack in another department. They're finding loads of work over the wall, at the next department, and the next department say, yeah, we'll take it. Politically, they had to say they were taking it, but that other department, they had other goals. There's like another empire over there, So there's a big queue just piling up in between the departments. So I had a flight levels board going across the department. You could see the work all queuing up, between the departments, showing, that the airport was busy, basically, So that's the magic of flight levels, just seeing that, oh my God, what are we doing? Like the work isn't flowing. Should we really start any work here? Because we can see there's a block. Should we not focus over there? And they've got interactions at the kind of team of teams or network of teams level. So at the flight level 2 level, you can say, okay, let's get together. Who do we need to send today to talk about our dependencies on team X? And you go and talk to them about it, and you manage the work. And there's a flight level 3 system where even at flight level 3, you think, oh, we're thinking of starting these initiatives. That was not a good time. I remember talking to an executive of one of these companies, and he wanted to start 93 projects in Q1 of a particular year. And I asked the question, I said, you only did half that last year. Why do you think you can do that many this year? Do we hire people? Do we get new vendors or something? Do we have a magic wand? And the message I landed with him, which is a bit of an oversimplification, but I said, your throughput is your capacity. Some people will throw stones at me for saying that, but it's because it is an oversimplification. But it's a kind of, it's near enough for an executive to understand that, like, if you only got 43 of those things done last year, at the same time last year, and you got a cyclical business where that quarter is actually the best quarter of your year, and you're trying to put in double that amount of work this year, and you actually haven't added any people, really? So because of my flight levels coaching, I managed to convince people not to take in that much work, to actually start in a sensible amount of work. So it's about managing flow at all levels, essentially, without being so Kanban metric oriented, if you know what I mean. It's kind of more psychological flow, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
The flight levels people probably throw tomatoes at me for saying that. Probably lose my flight levels coach badge for what I just said. But anyway.
That's a good approach, a new approach. And I think it is generally new, yeah, because it is over last 2 or 3 years that I have been hearing about it.
It's not that new. It's a very old idea. It's been around for a long time. It's just the branding of it is new enough, I guess. It's relatively new, the branding. But it's been around. Klaus would have been teaching a lot of this stuff for a long time. He would have been doing this for about over 10 years, I'd say.
10
so
years. Is there any specific organization behind it to promote it, or like
yeah,
Scrum.
yeah.
Was
Yeah,
it?
yeah. So you got flightlevels.io, flightlevels.io. Yeah. Yeah, and there's books as well. A lot of the books come out in German first. It's very popular in Germany and Austria. And I think the English book was just released recently. I was waiting for that for a long time. I was hoping it would be out before Christmas, but it's here we are, nearly half a year later, and it hasn't happened. Well, I think it just happened recently. So I'm looking forward to having a look at that.
Yeah, cool. Loved it. So let's continue with the next one. Agile kata trainer as well. Oh,
yeah. Yeah, I love Agile Kata. It's really, really cool. I was always into Toyota Kata since I heard about it. And it's essentially about, well, we have this vision, we're going that way. But that's like a really big vision. So how about we have some kind of challenge that we can kind of get our heads around in the next few months? And then let's look at where we are now. But actually, you might think you're here, but maybe you're way back. You're not actually where you think you are. Sometimes people are declaring progress that they actually haven't achieved. So it's about actually looking at where are you really, and you might not be where you thought you were. And then you're kind of saying, okay, what's my next target on the way to that challenge, on the way to that vision? And you agree a baby step, and it's only a baby step, so it's okay. You can. If it doesn't work out, it's only a baby step. You do an experiment and you plan to study act or whatever, and you kind of make progress. It's really, really cool, but it does require goal orientation. And we're not pushing an open door with goal orientation. A lot of companies are not into goals so much. I know we have objectives and key results in some companies, but I see a lot of output oriented goals rather than outcome-oriented goals. So Kata would be more about outcome-oriented goals, making a difference, changing customer behavior, moving some metrics in the organization. And it's about focus, I guess, and about making progress. And actually, the genius of Agile Kata is you're not restricted to change. You could also use it as a way for a team to get their work done, as an alternative to Scrum. Actually, you could use that as an alternative to Scrum. Yeah, you could say, well, because there's the coaching kata as well. So you could have someone who's in a kind of a coaching capacity asking questions, So can you remind me again what your target condition is? And can you tell me what your next step is? And so when are you planning to try this? And when can I check the results? And then they come back. Okay. So what did you think was going to happen? What actually happened? What did you learn? What's your biggest obstacle right now? Which obstacle are you going to chase next? So there's a rhythm around this. And that coaching rhythm should be daily, really. And that helps you to nudge towards your goal. So it does require discipline. You need goal orientation, and you need the discipline to continue that, updating your information radiators and having a coaching conversation every day. Someone holding you to account in terms of your discipline, that you're making progress. In my opinion, you could use it for your personal life, but Joe Kanplexity doesn't recommend you use Xagility for that. It's for professional work, knowledge work, where you have some problem you want to solve, some opportunity you want to avail of, and it helps you to nudge your way towards that. It's a very, very simple technique. It's really, really nice.
Mm. Okay, cool. Thanks, John. It was a nice conversation. I loved it, to be honest. One question about book. Have you written any book or not?
I was involved in a book way back around 2016 called Pivot, and I wrote a chapter of a book then, and I was involved with Kanplexity and Kanban guide, but this book series is my first proper one with my name, and I do have some in the book series that will have other names. The first one in the series is going to be myself and Tom Gilb on his work value planning and language. He's got a thing called planning language, which is about attaining unambiguous clarity on your objectives, because a lot of the time people don't try hard enough to quantify their objectives so they can be really crystal clear about what is the improvement that they're trying to measure here. And so in language, for example, it's very simple. Just to give you the audience a kind of an idea, you could say, well, okay, let's say we want to improve our net promoter score, right? Net promoter score is some people say it's a measure of customer loyalty. Some people say a measure of satisfaction. I don't think it's either of those, but it's a kind of a number that you say, well, what do you think of our service? 1 to 10 or something like that. And we want to improve our score, let's say, as a company. Well, what you could do in language, you say, okay, so what was our worst net promoter score so far? Let's say it was minus 50. What is it at the moment? It's minus 30. What would be failure? Well, failure would be if it stays negative, like less than 0. What would be tolerable? Well, if we got over 10, that'd be kind of okay. What would be our wish here? Oh, we'd like to get to 20 or above. What would be a stretch? 30. So from the people telling you that they wanted the net promoter score to go to 30, you then realize that 30 is just a stretch goal, and that actually what would be tolerable would be a net promoter score of 10. So you'd be really crystal clear about what you want to achieve. The best example of that would be security, for example, information security. Tom Gilb is quite clear on this, that information security has infinite cost. If you want absolute secure system, that has infinite cost, infinite. And companies don't have infinite money. So he makes it clear, well, we probably get hacked all the time. So they're going to get in. So it's about, well, okay, what are you going to do if they get in? And what are you doing about preventing them getting in? And if they do get in, what files have they seen? And how well do you notify people if they get in, and so on? And so you might say, well, failure would be we get hacked twice a year. And information gets divulged, customer information. Tolerable would be happen once a year, but the information they get is harmless. Wish is that it would be 0, but really, would it be 0 over a year, or would it be 0 over 2 years or 3 years? So his planning language helps you to be really clear about what you're willing to pay for and what you're willing to accept. You can do this with the costs, and you can also do it with the impact. It's really, really nice. He's also got impact estimation tables where you have a problem and you say, you've got these solution options. I got this one, that one, that one, that one. These are the costs with each of the options. This is the value we think we might get, although we haven't got a clue really, but we're just guessing what the value might be from these options. But then he's got something really clever. He's got a credibility factor. So what you do is you say, okay, the value is really high, but actually we just pulled it out of our, you know what, because actually we have no evidence that this works. So he's got a scale of 0 to 10. So 0 is like a wild guess,
Mhm.
and 10 is like, we got fully contract signed, guaranteed service, proved it works several times in our company, and everything in between, 10 different points in between. So you might find people are proposing ideas to you, but actually from a credibility scale, they only get 1 or 2 out of 10. So like, okay, I've got another option here that's lower value, but that's got 9 out of 10 credibility. So maybe I should go for that one. This is really clever. Thomas Rook is really, really smart. He was way before his time. He was doing agile in the 1960s.
Oh,
I asked Tom, what did you call it? He says, I didn't call it anything. It's just the natural way of working. I
wow.
bet.
It's
Yeah.
a level of awareness, John. Let's be honest here. A high level of awareness.
Yeah,
Wow.
very broad. Yeah, very, very, very broad and very deep. And I also know my limitations as well. And happy to send people off to other people when they want to work in something else. But
Mm.
yeah, I just love what I do. I'm really curious, love what I do. I love helping curious people. I love helping people who actually want to change. I've had a few occasions where sponsors brought me in and actually they didn't want any change. That happens a lot. It happens more often than you might think because people
Mm.
need to be politically seen to bring you in. And then they get a bit of a shock that actually you're making progress, and that's it. They get the bullet in the neck. So it's tricky. I love helping people who really want help.
Want, yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
And we are used to ask our guests to introduce two great books that they already read to our audience. So if you wanted to
Yeah.
suggest two books.
Yeah. That's pretty easy.
Uh-huh.
So when I was looking at executives, the best executive I could find,
Uh-huh.
and I did a lot of research, was Ed Catmull, ex-Pixar.
Mm. And
And
last
he
night
wrote a
we
book.
had a discussion about it with Rolf as well. Yeah, he has a book, Creativity Inc., I guess.
The one, and he updated it in 2023, and
Mm.
it's worth checking out the update. So that's amazing. Another one that really caught my attention was Trillion Dollar Coach by the guy who used to run Google. What's his name again? His name isn't coming to me. Eric something, I can't remember. It's not coming to me, but it's called Trillion Dollar Coach.
Wow.
That book is amazing. It's really, really good. I got a funny one as well for you.
Uh-huh.
I think I have it here. Yeah,
Uh-huh. What is it?
it's called the No Asshole Rule.
Wow. Could you please show it? Yeah.
Yeah, the No
Yeah.
Asshole Rule by
Uh-huh.
and Robert Sutton. And by the way,
Yeah.
there's a definition of certified asshole in the book. And in my book, I'm updating Robert's definition. So I chatted with him, and he's happy for me to publish the new version of certified asshole. But I'll read the one that he has at the moment in the current book. He's a lovely man, and hope I find it for you now straight away. But because you got people who are temporary assholes, and you got certified assholes. And
Now, what is
he's
it
kind of
about?
it's about what you do, and there's two tests. Do you want to hear them?
Uh-huh.
So test number one: after talking to the alleged asshole, does the target feel oppressed, humiliated, de-energized, or belittled by the person? In particular, does the target feel worse about him or herself? I can tell you, I was the victim of that in the last few days.
Mm-hmm.
Test number two. This is the killer question, because you might still not be a certified asshole just because you satisfied test number one. Test number two. Does the alleged asshole aim his or her venom at people who are less powerful rather than those people who are more powerful? In other words, how do you treat the janitor, the receptionist, the cleaner versus the CEO? Are you dismissive of one and brown nosing another?
Mm.
So it's good. It's really good. I love that book. That's really good. There's
Wow.
loads of books. I mean, I've read thousands of books. I read 5 or 6 books a week in terms of physical, and then there's probably another 4 that I listen to on Audible. And
Wow.
and so
Oh,
on.
great.
So yeah, I'm an avid reader and researcher. And when I read books, I really read books.
Mm.
I can read fast, but I really read them. Like
Mm.
to the extent that I could actually interview the author straight after reading it.
Mm.
And I've done that on the Xagility podcast. And
Wow.
this is other thing. This book is funny. Is the top 10 steps on enforcing the no asshole rule. He says, just do the short bits here. Say the rule, write it down, and act on it. Assholes will hire other assholes. Get rid of assholes fast. Treat certified assholes as incompetent employees. Power breeds nastiness. Embrace the power performance paradox. Manage moments, not just practices, policies, and systems. Model and teach constructive confrontation. Adopt the one asshole rule. I'll read that to you in a second. And the bottom line, link big policies to small decencies. So promoting decent behavior with people. So yeah,
Wow,
that'll be the
awesome.
fun one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I will add these books, links, and caption of the YouTube video that I will share. It was for our audience to make sure that they will have access to the link
Yeah.
of these
It's Eric
books.
Schmidt from Google, I think. Eric Schmidt.
Mm. Okay. Okay.
Trinidad
Cool.
coach.
So, John, as the last question, it was a really sweet and nice conversation. I don't want to finish it, but time is limited. So, let's continue with the last one. If you wanted to squeeze your professional life into just one sentence, what would that be?
I can think of a word,
Mm-hmm.
catalyst. Mm. One sentence, help people who want help.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's simple, but too deep. Yeah. Yeah. Loved it. Loved it. Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
And it's no secret then, it's not no surprise that if you help people who want help, they probably get better, because
Yeah,
they want.
definitely.
It's not
And
because I'm
how
any good. They want to help anyway. They want to change. Yeah.
how can our audience find you if they want to contact you?
Yeah. So you can search me on LinkedIn, John Anthony Coleman.
Anthony Coleman. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can also find me at orderlydisruption.com, orderlydisruption.com.
Yeah, website.
And yeah, that's the company. And I do training all over the world. And I do in-person training and I do live virtual as well. And I do consulting in America. I do training mostly Europe.
Uh-huh.
Well, I used to be a lot of America, but then the last 6 months, America has gone a bit cold on me. Asia, um, Australia, even Philippines, helping people over
You
there.
you do them virtually, yeah? Remotely, I mean.
Yeah,
Yes.
because visas and all that. Trying to get a visa for Australia is like
Yeah.
it's forever, right? But yeah, but I help people like virtually. Well, they book my through my UK times here, times when it suits them, just by accident, I guess. Yeah, so yeah, they can find me on orderlydisruption.com. I blog prolifically. Um, I'm about to start an experiment on TikTok, so keep an eye out for that. I'm working with a young person and looking forward to her showing me how to help the younger generation learn some of the things and that maybe I wish I knew when I was younger. Um, so that's going to be starting in the next week, actually. So I'm looking forward to
Oh,
that. Yeah, because I heard something from Mark Cuban on an interview with Lex Friedman yesterday, and he said, whoever controls the algorithm controls the world. So don't be stuck to one channel. Try different channels. So I'm trying to be a little bit more diverse with the type of social media that I use. I'm trying to reduce my own personal social media, but in terms of business social media, there'll be a lot more variety
uh-huh.
in how I approach things. I won't be just using LinkedIn like a lot of people at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to make sure, I remember already you told me that you are living in Ireland. Am I right? or?
From Ireland, but I'm living about half an hour's drive from Oxford, about 1 hour drive outside of London. I'm in the countryside here. So on Amazon Prime, there's a show called The Farm with a guy called Jeremy Clarkson. He used to be in Top Gear, quite a famous guy. He's got a show called The Farm, and his farm would be about half an hour from here as well.
Oh,
It's so that kind of countryside, rolling countryside, trees, farms, things like that. That's kind of where I am.
so actually you're in England.
England, yeah.
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 Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I've been here for it's last 10, 15 years, because for 5 of the first years I was kind of going to and fro, and I tried to go back to Ireland for a while as well. But so yeah, 10 to 15 years I've been here in the UK. And yeah, there's no place like home, of course. I could see myself going back to Ireland at some point. Or going to Australia at some point, because I loved Australia when I was there. I fell in love with Australia
Oh.
when I saw it 2 months ago. Someone told me years ago that if I ever went, I wouldn't come back. She was almost right, because it's tempted. Yeah, you have to return to normality, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Okay, John, thank you very much. We are at the end of our conversation. Again, I appreciate your approach to be here and contribute to these type of works. It was a really, really nice and great conversation. Thank you very much. Is there anything specific you want to share with audience as the last sentence or things? Feel free, please.
Maybe just check me out on podcasts on YouTube. So you'll find, if you look at the Agility Island, you'll find lots of practical tips. If you're a practitioner, you find a lot of practical tips there. And if you're into product management, or you need some help as an executive to understand what all these books are about, the things that are coming out, are they worth reading and things like that, you can check out the Xagility podcast. They're both very popular. And so, yeah, and there'll be a lot more content coming out in the coming months. So I'm going to be getting very, very busy on social media in the coming months. As soon as the book comes out, then it's showtime.
Okay, cool. John, thank you very much. And have a nice day.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Yeah, bye.
Mehdi. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.